Hello everyone, my name is Joseph Elfelt and I'm the developer of GISsurfer. If you see something in this video that is not familiar, then hopefully I covered that item in an earlier video in this series. When a GISsurfer map opens, it can only display base maps and overlays that the map knows about. There are two ways that the map knows about something when the map opens. First, the specification for some GIS base maps and overlays are built into the code. Second, the map also knows about any GIS base maps and overlays that are specified via the data parameter. This video will focus on the syntax for the data parameter that is used to specify base maps and overlays. The types of GIS servers covered in this video will be ArcGIS, XYZ tile servers, and WMS. The screen is now showing the standard syntax that is used for the data parameter in order to display ArcGIS map server, feature server, and image server data. The first thing to notice is that image server data does not use a layers identifier. Usually, map server and feature server data should be displayed as an overlay. However, if that data entirely covers the screen, such that you cannot see anything under that data, then it might be best to display that data as a base map. Usually, image server data will cover the screen and hide anything underneath. So most image server data should probably be displayed as a base map. There is an important exception to the above syntax. Map server and image server data is sometimes stored on the ArcGIS server as pre-made map tiles at different zoom levels. You should use XYZ syntax to display tile data since 1. The data will appear on the map faster, and 2. Using XYZ syntax will place less load on the server. XYZ syntax will be covered later in this video. This exception does not apply to feature server data since that data is always delivered to your screen as coordinate data and not as images. Each specification to display ArcGIS data using the layer syntax has 3 required elements. 1. It must begin with a base map or overlay. 2. There must be a name. You can make up the name, and I usually make up a name that is more user-friendly than the name used on the server. And 3rd, you must provide the internet address where the data is located on the server. You can get the internet address for the data either from the ArcGIS server's table of contents, or if you are surfing the data via a sidebar in the GISsurfer map, then the data address appears near the top of the sidebar. For map server and feature server data, you must provide one or more layer numbers. The layer numbers are found in the ArcGIS server's table of contents. And when appropriate, instead of just doing a single layer number, you can provide a comma-separated list of layer numbers, including layer numbers expressed as a range, like you see there. When you specify multiple layer numbers, all those layer numbers must appear on the same layers page in the ArcGIS server table of contents. Also, there are some options that you can use when you specify a GIS base map or overlay. The most useful option by far is dynamic layers. However, this option can only be used with ArcGIS map server data, and you must check the server's table of contents to see if the specific map server data you are displaying supports dynamic layers. An earlier video in this series provides an introduction to the table of contents for an ArcGIS server. The opacity parameter is useful if you want to see through an overlay that otherwise would have solid areas on the map. For example, the weather radar overlay that is built into GISsurfer uses an opacity setting. And while you can use the option to disable caching of the map server and feature server images in your browser, I don't recommend you do that except only for weather information that rapidly changes. Weather radar, tornado warnings, things of that nature. And the last point on syntax, before we look at some examples, is that the data parameter must be the last parameter in the map link. When you see a data parameter in a GISsurfer map link, then everything after that equal sign is part of the value for the data parameter. Of course, if you watched the earlier video on link parameters, then you already knew that. Okay, now let's start looking at some examples. The screen now shows the top of the list of ArcGIS server addresses that I curate. The Federal Bureau of Land Management has several ArcGIS servers. One of them has information just for Colorado, and I can find that server in the list by searching on. And I'm going to click this link to open up the table of contents for this server. The screen is now at the top of the table of contents for this BLM server. And since I am interested in wilderness areas, I'm going to drill down on lands. And now we see a number of services. Notice that the wilderness area data is available both as feature server and map server. Since feature server data never supports dynamic layers, and this map server data might support dynamic layers, I always click on map server. So we'll follow that link right there. Okay, scrolling down just a bit, we see that I'm now on a layers page, and layers pages have all the information I need to display this data with GISsurfer. Notice also that dynamic layers are supported. We can also see that by scrolling down a bit here, and we see where it says supports dynamic layers true. I always like to see that because it means GISsurfer can restyle the data. Back up at the top here, let's see, there's one more thing to check. We see that single fuse map cache is false. That means this data is not tiled. Because this data is not tiled, the way to display this data is with the layer number syntax I showed earlier in the video. The layer number is easy to remember because there's just one layer here, layer number 0. And we can get the address for the data from the browser bar right there. So I'm going to copy the address and start making a map link. The screen is now showing a map link centered on Colorado, and with the syntax I'm going to complete. I'm going to paste the address I copied right in there, and I remember that it's layer number 0. Put 0 right there. I'm going to make up a name. So I made up the name COBLM Wilderness, and I also added that same name to the overlay parameter, so this data will be on when the map opens. Now I'm going to reassemble the link and display this map. Copy the link, and the map is open on the screen now. Going to zoom in on this area. The solid areas you see on the screen are wilderness areas managed by the BLM. Now, I don't really like the fact that the wilderness areas are a solid color, so I'm going to improve the map by making that data semi-transparent. To make that tweak, I need to start by getting the link that will replicate the map, so I'm going to click on Menu, Link to this map. Now, I could copy this link and take it to an editor, but I can also edit the link right here. So I'm going to add opacity, and I'm guessing that a good value might be 0.5. We'll try that. I can change it if I don't like it. Copy the link now. Copy. Paste it back into the browser and reopen the map. Let's zoom in a bit more here. Well, now I see that the wilderness area is semi-transparent. I can see the terrain below it. Much better. But I also want to add another overlay with some campgrounds and related information. So to start, I'm going to go back to the menu. Again, I'm going to copy the current link to replicate the map just to make sure I get it right. I'm going to go back to my workspace and paste that link right there. And now you see I have the opacity value in my map link. I'm going to add a couple vertical lines right there, getting ready to add the next overlay to this link. Think of these two vertical lines as being similar in concept to an end-of-line indicator. And I'm also going to now add the syntax for the next overlay I'm going to add to the map. Although I need to get rid of that data parameter right there because I already have the data parameter earlier in the map right there. Now I'm going back to the table of contents for the BLM server right there, and I'm clicking on Home to go back up to the top of the table of contents, and now I'm going to drill down on the recreation link. And again, we see recreation data is available both as feature server and map server. If you know that I'm going to click on the map server link, then thank you for paying attention to this video. Now we can scroll down here and see what we see. Oh, there's all kinds of layers of recreation stuff. Oh, okay, very interesting. Looking down a bit more here, we see that single fuse map cache is false, telling us that this data is not tiled. And I think I want to display layer number 4 right there, and also display layers, I think I want to display layers 9 through 15. Now that I know the layers that I want to display, the next step is to copy the address from the browser right there, go back to my workspace where I'm building my map link, paste the address in right there, paste that in. Now I need to put in the layer numbers that I want to display, and that was layer 4, and then 9 through 15. I don't have to type each layer number. I can use a range just like that. And I need to make up a name and put the name in here. I made up the name of Campsites and More right there. And because I want that layer to be displayed when the map opens, I added the name to the overlay parameter right there. And you should already know that the overlay parameter determines which overlays will be on when the map opens and the order with which they will be turned on, and the last overlay in the list will be on top when the map opens and can be clicked to display attribute data. Okay, the map link is finished. We'll copy it and open the map. Oh, we get a lot of nice recreation markers on the map now. Look at that. And we can click any one of them. Let's click that one and see what kind of attribute data that we get. And scroll down, and we clicked on a picnic area, and there's the name of the picnic area, a little bit more information. They have room here in the attribute data for photos, but they don't have any photos there. Well, okay, close that. Because all the different overlay numbers that I put into the map link are all part of the same layer on the map, I can click any of the recreation symbols on here and see the attribute information. And of course, if I wanted to, let's say, share a map that looked right like this, I would just do Menu, Link to this map, copy that link. I could open up a new browser tab, paste the link in there, and the map opens up. That's how you would share the link with friends, family, social media, any place you wanted to. Now let's look at an example showing image server data that is not tiled. The screen is showing the syntax to display image server data either as an overlay or as a base map. Note that image server data does not require any kind of layers identifier. This map with the map center and zoom will open at a random spot in the greater San Diego area. Now the screen shows a page from the table of contents of an ArcGIS server run by the San Diego Association of Governments. This is image server data from 2017, and it's 4-inch, so it's just super detailed if you zoom in. I know this data is not tiled because single fuse map cache is false. The only information I need on this page in order to display it with GISsurfer is the data address from my browser. So I'm going to copy that, go back to my workspace, and start filling in the map link. Now I'm going to make this an overlay instead of a base map, and I'll explain why when I show you the map. Paste that in there, and I need to make up a name. I made up the name San Diego 2017, and I used an underline instead of a space, and I also set the value of the overlay parameter to the same name, so this overlay will be displayed when the map opens. Now I can copy the link that I made and open the map. In this case, I made the aerial an overlay since I wanted to show a region that included the edge of aerial coverage. If I had made the aerial a base map, then the area outside of aerial coverage would just be blank. Now if my focus instead was on an area entirely covered by the aerial, then I probably would have made this a base map instead of an overlay. The screen is now showing the syntax for displaying tiled ArcGIS data. When data has been tiled, that means it has already been rendered on the server as sets of JPEG or PNG files at various zoom levels. Tiled data displays faster and puts less load on the server, since the server does not have to make those image tiles on the fly in response to a request from your map. Notice that layer numbers are not used. Also, it is only map server and image server data that sometimes is tiled. I will show you how to recognize when data is tiled a bit later in this video. Tiled data can be displayed either as a base map or an overlay. And feature server data is never tiled. I'll scroll down just a bit here. The required information is the word either base map or overlay. You have to make up a name, just like we've been doing, and you have to provide the address on the server for where the tiled data can be found. As an option, you can add some transparency like I did on an earlier map in this video. Once again, the screen is showing the top of the ArcGIS server list that I curate. I know that the county where I live has a nice base map on their ArcGIS server, so I'm going to search for King County. I'm copying the table of contents for this server right there. Copy, copy. The screen now shows a GISsurfer map roughly centered on King County. Now I'm going to do a little surfing here by clicking the base map button, add GIS overlays, scroll down to the input box, paste in the address that I copied, send the request to the server. And the sidebar opens up. I see a list of folders here. I'm going to click on the one for base maps, drill down on that, and I'm going to go down to the bottom of this list here. I'm going to click on the generic base map. Now, one thing we see that's really important here is that this is a fused cache, and that tells us that this data is tiled, and it'd be best to display it with XYZ tile syntax. I'm also going to go back up to the top of the sidebar, and I'm going to look at this page from the actual server's table of contents by clicking there. That page pops up on my screen, and if I scroll down here, I see, sure enough, it says single fused map cache is true, and I see the tile information below that. These are all the different levels. Each level here is a zoom level on the map where preformed image tiles have been made. Okay, I'm going to go back to the map now, scroll down, and click right there to actually add this data to the map. I'm done with my sidebar. I'll close that. Now, if we zoom in, as we continue to zoom in, more information will appear on the map. I see more streets and more streets again. That's just the way this works. Tile data, as you zoom in, you will see more detail. So I'm going to zoom out to right about there. I'm going to zoom in to about there. Now, you just saw two ways to find out if map server or image server data is tiled. One way is that if you are surfing data, you will see a yellow message in the sidebar saying fused cache. The other way is that if you are looking at an ArcGIS server table of contents page, then you will see the message fused cache is true, followed by the detailed tile information. Now if I get the link to replicate the map on my screen, link to this map, we take a look at that, we see the map link uses the layer syntax, and since this data is tiled, we want to edit this map link and change it to use the XYZ tile syntax instead. Copy, go over to my workspace, and I'm going to paste the link right here. Now I'm going to edit the map link. I pasted in to change it from the layer syntax into the XYZ tile syntax. So I can get rid of layers. I need to copy the tile syntax right there. Copy that, paste that onto the end of the map link. Paste right there. Now let's see, next Here's the name map. I'm going to change that to King County. Note that I used an underline instead of a space. I don't want to display it as an overlay, so I want to display this as a base map. And I'm going to copy the name I made, King County. Copy that and set the base map parameter to that name. So that base map opens, that base map displays when the map opens. And I don't need the overlay parameter, so I'm getting rid of that. Now I should, if I did that right, I should be able to copy the map link, copy, and go to the browser and paste that in there and open the map. Well, sure enough. And if I look at the list of base maps that the map knows about by clicking the base map button and scrolling down without closing it, the map knows about King County as a base map. Now the map on the screen is an example of tiled data that is completely solid and therefore intended to be displayed as a base map. Next, I'm going to show you an example of tiled map server data that is intended to be displayed as an overlay. Let's walk through the link that's displayed on the screen here. Here is the address for where the data resides on the server with the tile syntax at the end. This data is going to display lakes, rivers, streams, right down to very small seasonal trickles of water. I made up this name right there. The data is going to display as an overlay on the map. The name that I made up is also set as the value of the overlay parameter, which means this data will display when the map opens, and the base map is going to display an aerial image. So I'm going to reassemble the link here so we can display the map. Now I can copy the link. We'll open it up. Copy, browser, paste the link in here, and there's our map. If I change the base map to all white, right here, then all we see is the XYZ tile data on the screen. If I turn the overlay off by clicking there, well, we see nothing. That's not very interesting. Okay, I can turn the overlay back on. Overlay back on. I can display it with a different base map. Turn that on. A different aerial. This one shows states, names of states. So this is an example of tiled map server data that is pretty obviously intended to be displayed as an overlay on different base maps. What I want you to keep in mind is that you might need to experiment a bit to help you decide whether it's best to display data as a base map or as an overlay, depending on the story you want your map to tell. Now I'm going to show you a trick for checking any ArcGIS server address to see if it has tiled data. Use a Google Advanced Search, just like this example right here, and make sure that you do not put any space in between site and the address of the server that you want to check. And make sure you include the quotes just like I've got it here. So if I do this Google Advanced Search by copying that, copy, entering that into a browser tab, go right there, paste that in, here's what I get. Each hit on this search is tile data on that server. And you can see in the details right there, it says single fuse map cache true. So now you know a little trick. On the screen now is the general syntax for displaying tile data that is hosted on servers that are not using the ArcGIS software. There are two changes to the syntax. First, the order of X and Y are reversed. Second, the link will end in either PNG or JPEG. You will need to look at the server's documentation in order to learn which of those endings is correct. As before, each specification is either going to be a base map or an overlay, and you need to make up a name and the address for the data you will get from the server's documentation. In the server's documentation, you may see reference to level, call, and row like that. That is just another way to write Z, X, and Y. Don't be confused when you see that kind of information in the server's documentation. And if you're going to display tile data from a server that requires you to enter an API key, then the address for the data will look something like that. Several of the links that I'm going to use in the rest of this video are also shown in the PDF file that documents the data parameter. So if you want to copy any of the links I'm going to mention, then I suggest you check that PDF file that you can find on the GISsurfer help page. The University of Wisconsin-Madison is hosting a variety of GIS data they call Real Earth. This data can be accessed several ways, including by using the XYZ tile syntax. The screen is showing the general address for displaying Real Earth tile data. Each Real Earth dataset has a unique name. To display any Real Earth data, you would replace the underline here with the name of the data that you want to display. Now there are two ways to find the name for Real Earth data. For the first method, I'm going to go back to the main Real Earth web page and click on Apps, and then click on Products. On this page, you can identify a subset of data by selecting a collection or by clicking any of these items in this area here. The bottom part of the screen will display a list of the actual layers that you can display depending on what you clicked up above. There's a scroll bar over here where you can scroll through these layers. There's a whole lot of them. When you find a data layer that you want to display, the text inside of the square brackets right there is the name of the layer that you will plug into the XYZ tile syntax in order to display this data. Also, the red link right there, that is a link that may lead to some useful metadata about the information this layer can display. So if you're displaying information from the Real Earth repository, it's always a good idea to click on this red link just to see if there's any useful metadata that you would like to know about. For an example of metadata, I'm going to click on flood detection right there, and then I'm going to, now if I wanted to actually display that data layer again, it's the name inside of the square brackets that I would use in the GISsurfer map link. But if I wanted to look at the metadata, I would click this link right there and see what it says. And there's a description up here. And this is interesting. Apparently this data can see through the clouds because the cloud pixels are set to transparent. You would see any floods going on that were otherwise covered by clouds. Cool. Next, I'm going to demonstrate the second way to find Real Earth data names. The screen now shows an XML file with the various data sets sorted by category. The link to that page is in my browser bar, and you can also see it in the PDF file that documents the data parameter. The information on this page is arranged into topics: alerts, America View, Australia, etc. And under each topic there are a number of layers that GISsurfer can display. So you could either search for a dataset name that you're interested in, or you could search by keywords. The name that you would use in the GISsurfer map link is the end of the link that you see on this page here. I'm going to search this file on Clearview, and there's the hit right there. So I'm going to make a map link to display that data. Copy that. I have pasted the name I copied into my syntax right there. I have made up the name of night lights. This is going to be a base map, and I've set the base map parameter to the same name that I made up, so I can reassemble this link and copy it and open the map. Open the browser tab, paste it in there, and there's the map. Next, I'm going to show you the same data but with two overlays added to the map, one that shows country outlines and the other that shows state outlines. There's the map. Doesn't that look better? Which one do you prefer? That one or this one? I vote for the colored one. And if you want to see the link that I used to make this map, just check out the PDF file that documents the data parameter. This map was made using dynamic layers. There'll be a later video in this series showing you how to do the same thing. Oh, and while we're here on this map, this was interesting. Let's take a look at the northwest corner of North Dakota. Well, I don't think there's any metropolitan area up here. What this is a very large oil field, and the light is coming from flare stacks that are burning off gas and releasing a tremendous amount of CO2, methane, and other compounds. So if you are thinking that this is helping to make climate change worse, you are exactly right. Now, some real Earth data is intended to be displayed as a base map, like the example on the screen, and other real Earth data is intended to be displayed as an overlay. You may need to experiment in order to decide the best way to display a data set. Here is a map link that will display a data set with the name Snow Depth 24. It's going to be an overlay. I made up that name, and I want that overlay to be displayed when the map opens, so I set the overlay parameter to the same name. Notice that this map link does not have a center parameter or a parameter for zoom or base map. So the default values for those parameters that are built into the GISsurfer code will be used for this map. So I can reassemble the map specification here, copy the link, go to the browser, and paste the link in here to open the map. So with data related to snow cover, obviously that's intended to be displayed as an overlay and not as a base map. But let's improve this map by adding state lines as an overlay. I like that better with the state lines. And of course, using dynamic layers, you can make the state lines any color you like. In the last part of this video, I'm going to show you how to use GISsurfer to display data that is hosted on WMS servers. You are looking at the basic syntax for doing that. Just like for other kinds of GIS servers, you need to make up a value for name, but to get the information to fill in the rest of the blanks, you will need to look at what is called a Get Capabilities file. I'm going to show you WMS examples from two different sources. Iowa State University hosts a bunch of weather-related data known as Mesonet. A link to that page is right there in my browser. Note the two links that I am highlighting here. Both of those links lead to data that GISsurfer can display using WMS syntax. I'm going to click on the first link, which leads to data from the GOES satellites, and scroll down on this page to the Web Maps Service, WMS, and under that heading you're going to see 9 links right there. To display the Get Capabilities file, you need to copy any one of these links, and then at the end of the link add this information, and then open that combined link. So I want to display GOES West water vapor imagery, so I'm going to copy that link. So here's the link I copied, and I added the additional information to it. So now I can copy the link that I made, copy, go to my browser, and plug that in here to display the Get Capabilities file, which I now see on my screen. This capabilities file shows us that the version number is 130. So I'm going to go to where I am going to make a link, and I'm going to add 130 to the link I'm making right there. Now back to the capabilities file. If you're just starting to learn about this, I recommend that you might go to the bottom of the file and sort of read up. Find the line that starts online resource, and the link that you see there is going to be the value for URL that you fill in on the GISsurfer map link. Now you might need to experiment a little bit. Either the value is the part up to the question mark, or the value you need to fill in the map link is the part up to the first ampersand sign. Well, I already experimented, so I know the value for URL I need to put in the GISsurfer map link is that right there. So I'm going to copy that, go back to where I'm building my link, and here's URL. I'm going to paste that right in there. And I know I'm going to display water vapor, so I'm going to make up a name and put it right in there, and I'll call it water vapor, sure. And it's going to be a base map, so I'm going to copy that name and use it as the name for the base map parameter as well, so that base map displays when the map opens up. The only thing I need now is to put a value in for layers. So going back to the Get Capabilities file, and I'm going to keep looking up in this file, and when I get to a line get to two lines that look like this right here, where it starts with layer, well actually it starts with a bracket symbol, an angle symbol, and then the word layer, and that's followed by a line that has name tags and a value inside the name tags. It's the value inside the name tags that is what I'm going to copy and go back to my work area and use as the value for layers. So on a WMS server, sometimes the value for layers will be a name like we see here, but other times in your Get Capabilities file, you're going to see a number inside the name tags, and then you would use the number as the value for layers in your map link. So I'm going to go back here, grab my map link, copy, and go to a browser tab and paste that in and open the map. There it is. Oh, that's colorful. But what happened? All we have is the data. There's no other map. And well, that's because I made it a base map. If we scroll down on the list of base maps, well, there's water vapor right there. Well, maybe I should have made that one an overlay. So let's go back to our work area and we'll make it an overlay. I think that might work better. So let's see, we need to go to the data parameter right there. Okay, here we need to make this an overlay. Overlay. And let's just get rid of the base map parameter altogether. So the default base map will be displayed. And instead, we'll have an overlay parameter here. And we'll give it the same name, so the overlay is displayed on top of the default base map when the map opens. Put that in there, paste. Now let's copy and take a look at this map. See if this is a little better. Paste it in there. That's much better. Although we have a solid overlay here, we could either give this overlay a little transparency, or we could add the country outline or maybe state outline. Here is the same map then with state lines added to it. There's an awful lot of water vapor out there. I think this looks like a better map. I have gone back to the main Mesonet page to show you a second way to find the names of data to display, and that's by clicking this link right here, which I'm going to do. And I'm going to scroll down on this page and get to a section that right here, where again it lists a bunch of links in red. There's one. And at the end of any of those links, to find the Get Capabilities file, you need to add this information here, just like you did before. One thing that is interesting here is that you can display individual channels of data from the GOES satellites. I'm going to come back sometime myself and take a little closer look at that data. Now, in addition to Mesonet data, another excellent source of data that can be displayed with the WMS syntax is NASA. I'm looking at the NASA GIBS page right here. And now the screen is showing the Get Capabilities file for the NASA WMS data. We know that the version number is 130, so I have already filled 130 in on the map link that I'm going to build. Now take a look at this here where it says 3857. I'm going to go back to the NASA page and scroll down and point something out about that. Scroll down to here, scroll right here. When you look at WMS servers, you may see reference to whether you want 4326 or 3857 or some other number, and it might be talking about map projections, whatever in the world that is. Well, you don't have to worry or wonder about it. You just pick 3857. That's what GISsurfer wants you to do. Now I'm going back and grabbing the Get Capabilities link so we can open that up. This Get Capabilities file has lots of layers you can display. Well, once again, I'm going to go to the bottom of this file and point some things out. One thing to point out is that you should look to see if there's a legend in the data. Click on that plus sign. And here is a legend link. And let's just take a look at this legend link, see what this says. Okay, open in a new tab, and we get a nice graphic, sea surface temperature in degrees centigrade. Okay, so you have seen that legend, and that legend goes along if we read up like we just did. If we read up until we find two lines that have name tags, and then above the name tags, an angle symbol and the word layer, that legend goes along with this data right there. And that would be the name that we would use in the GISsurfer map link if we wanted to display that data. Now, in addition to that Get Capabilities file, there's a second way to get layer names for the NASA data. I've gone back to the main page for the GIBS system, and I'm going to scroll down on this page again, and I'm going to click on Visualize Product Catalog. Give OK, and I get this page opening up. I'm going to scroll down here, right here. Now I have an option. I could click on and expand that, and then I could choose one of these science disciplines, and then I would get layer details that I could use to display that data, or I could expand one of these entries here with the plus sign. And I'm going to go down and expand on geostationary. And now I see a number of different layers I could display. The name of the layer that I would use in the GISsurfer map link is that right there. I can also click on any of these and it would give me a preview of what that data is going to look like. I'm going to finish this video by displaying a map that has that data layer right there. I gotta admit, I like these kinds of maps that have the true color view of the Earth and then show something else going on with the weather. This is the end of the video showing you how to use the data parameter to add GIS basemaps and GIS overlays to your map. Remember, except for minor differences in the interface, GISsurfer works the same on almost any device that has a browser, including cell phones. Next in this series is video number 8, which will show you how to use dynamic layers to restyle some, but not all, ArcGIS map server data. If you make your own GISsurfer map links, and I hope you do, then this is an extremely useful feature that you will want to use. In addition to the GISsurfer videos, there are also several PDF files with additional tips and examples that are not covered in the videos. You can find those PDF files by going to the GISsurfer homepage, GISsurfer.com, click the big green menu button, and go to the help page. You can always find my contact information and links to my various projects by visiting the Mapping Support Project page, mappingsupport.com. Thanks for watching. I hope you find GISsurfer to be useful.